Welcome home, everyone. Thank you for joining in on this episode of Welcome Home with the Katinas. Welcome Home is a podcast where I, your host Josh, sit down for a conversation with different people who I admire and discuss whatever's on their mind, and especially focus on life at home in times like this. Wherever you are and however you're listening, thank you for your support, and once again, welcome home. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining in on this week's episode of Welcome Home with the Katinas. To those of you out there listening, maybe with kids or you yourself are on spring break, or maybe spring break is just around the corner. Hope you guys are enjoying that or will enjoy that. Hope you relax, spend time with the family. We'll get into it later with my guest, but the spring break is the reason he's here today. So I'm thankful that we get a break for spring. Hopefully the weather is turning wherever you're at and you're getting some more sunshine and some warmth. But thank you guys to those of you listening online or watching on YouTube even. I just want to let you know how thankful I am for everyone who supports this show by listening, by watching, and especially those of you who are financial supporters with the show, as well as the Katinas ministry. We couldn't do this without you. So thank you so much for your support. I value my partnership with all of you guys. And if you would like to become a partner, the best way to do that is to go to thekatinas.com. You'll see a give button on their website. Just click on that and it'll take you to where you need to go. So that's that. And we will get into today's episode. I have a returning guest, a very handsome young man in the building on spring break. He's home from college, my cousin, River Katina.
Thanks for having me back on the show, Josh.
Riv, so glad you're here. And I appreciate you taking time. Like I said, you're on spring break, taking time out of your break to be here with us. And I know every hour that you have out of school is precious. And so it means a lot to me that you're here, bro.
Thanks for having me.
Well, since you've been on the show before, well, how long ago was it that you came on? Do you
Somewhere
remember?
around a year ago. I was going to say a lot's changed. It was, I think, sometime in the middle of my senior year.
So you hadn't graduated high school yet?
No, I don't believe so.
Okay.
And if I did, it was pretty recent after I graduated. So.
Well, back when you were here for your first time, I asked you your 3 questions, as I do for all my first-time guests. But for returning guests, I don't ask the 3 questions. I only ask 1. And so this question, I've asked it to you before, and it's intentionally open-ended, so you can answer it however you want. But the question is this: what's going on at home, Riff?
So since the last time I have been on the show, a lot's changed, including my home. So now, as I've been used to calling Spring Hill my home, and it still is, my home is now Cleveland, Tennessee for the next 4 years. But there's a lot going on. A lot has changed. I've got my first job in college.
Wow.
Working at Hibbett Sports.
Okay.
So that's going on, and then just a lot of school. That pretty much takes up all my time, working out, going to school, and going to work. So that's what's going on at home.
Great. Well, I know a lot's been going on in your life, and I'm super proud of where you're at. So when I was in college, I'm trying to think back to my freshman year. I remember hearing people say that after that first semester, that Christmas break, like there's a good percentage of kids who they don't go back to school after Christmas. And I'm sure it's for a variety of reasons. Some kids, they're homesick, or school's just not working out, or they have something going on at home that they just can't leave for. And but I do know that if you do return from that Christmas break, your percentage of actually graduating goes way up. And so this Christmas, when I heard that you were coming back in town, you were done with your first semester, I was thinking, man, I wonder if Riff's going to go back, because you never know. And, but you did go back. And so I'd love to start off. I don't get a lot of college students on the show, so I'd love to just ask you, what has your first semester and a half in college been like?
It's been so different from any, not only just semester of school, but just phase of life I've ever been in. School is a lot harder. High school is, people can put in a lot of work and do well, but you can also get through high school by cruising with the flow of the water.
Yeah.
But college, you just can't.
Yeah.
And I think that's been a big change to me. Just the fact that, you're responsible for everything that you do. I remember just 2 weeks ago, my car battery died. My mom wasn't there to help me jump it. So I had to, figure that out. So it's almost like everything that happens in college, it's almost like, even if you've been through it before, it's a new experience because you're by yourself. So the first semester has been just eye-opening, honestly. I'm very grateful for my first semester. I think it just showed me, how to be responsible and diligent and careful with my time. And I've said I learned all these things, but it's not like they just plopped on me. I learned through failing and not using my time right. So that's how my semester's been so far. First semester.
What kind of student would you say you were in high school? Were you
I pretty much kind of just did what I had to do to get by. Playing sports, freshman through senior year, 2 sports for 3 of the years. It's almost just like that's where my mind was at. Sure. Especially when my mindset was, I'm going to go play a sport in college. That's kind of, school was not at the forefront of pretty much any part of my life.
Sure.
And now being at college, just as a student and not an athlete, it's pretty much just school. It's school and work. So that's been a big change.
Yeah, I was curious, do you feel like the student River Katina now is different than the student?
It's a completely different person in the classroom just because, one, I'm learning at a much different pace than I was at high school, and that's probably was my fault. I mean, I would say I took 3 history classes in high school, and I've learned more in my 1 semester of my history class than I did in the 3 years.
Wow.
And that might be my fault, but that's just an example of how I've changed as a student and someone in the classroom. So
what history class are you taking?
Right now I'm in recent American history, so it's like...
Can I ask who your professor's name is?
Dr. Coates.
Okay. I was thinking...
Pretty tough.
Okay.
He's pretty tough.
Have you by chance... So for those of you who don't know, Riv goes to the school I graduated from, Lee University, and there was this super popular history professor that everyone took their first year. I think his name was Dr. Barnett.
He's still there.
He is still there? Okay.
Barnett,
he won Professor of the Year twice when I was at Lee, but
big deal.
Yeah, I took his history class and I was the same. I learned so much. I'm sure the class you're in right now is similar.
Yeah, my history professor's old school kind of guy. He's pretty strict and straight to the point, but he's a good teacher. So
nice.
That's been a change.
I'm sure you get asked this question all the time, but have you picked a major or is there anything?
So I was going in to my first semester undeclared, and I was taking a psychology class, and that immediately just grabbed my attention, and I figured, okay, I like this, so I'm going to take one more class. So I'm in my second psych class right now, and then next semester I'll declare as psych major.
Nice. That's awesome. What is it about psychology that's interesting to you?
I think just the fact that I'm a thinker, whether it be about those around me or even myself. I think really deeply, maybe too deep at sometimes, but I think it was the first class I've ever taken that doesn't feel like it's a school class. It just feels like I'm learning about myself and about those around me. So I think that's the main thing that's attracted me to it.
Let me switch away from the school part. What is I know you're living in a dorm. So what is dorm life / social life like for you? At Lee?
So the beginning of the first semester was probably the most socializing I did because intramural softball was going on. You probably know it's a big thing. So I was hanging out with a ton of people. But as the semester went on, Greek life starts picking up, and most of my friends hopped into Greek life. I just felt like it wasn't the right time. So I'm honestly most of the time at class, in my room, the gym, and work. So I spent a lot of time with my roommate, Elijah. He actually came back with me. He's here this week.
Oh, nice.
So we got a good dynamic. We're both pretty laid back, chill kind of guys. We're not out too much, but
So before going to college, like for a big part of your life, sports was like, it took up a huge part of your life.
Yeah.
And I assume now that that's not necessarily the case. There's a hole in your time, a hole maybe in your heart. What are you filling that hole with?
man, working. That's kind of like, and just intramural sports. I think when you say the hole in your heart part, that's more of like, okay, I'm gonna go play intramural basketball because I like to compete.
Sure.
Now it's obviously a much different level than I'm used to, but that's kind of how I cure the mental side of it because it's been a huge change. But with the time, it's just working because if I'm not, the whole plan was to go make money playing sports. Well, I'm not playing sports. I still need money.
Yeah.
So working is and working out pretty much.
So you brought up working. Hibbett Sports, I'm not familiar. What are you doing there?
It's pretty much just it's like a retail athletic store, like Champs, Finish Line. So it's not the busiest. It's in the mall in Cleveland, which it gets kind of busy maybe on a Friday for 30 minutes. But
I remember Dylan worked at that mall for years. I think he worked at the American Eagle or something there.
I think that just went out of business.
Oh,
but
yeah, Dylan left and it's everything went
right.
downhill.
Yeah, he carried. But I get people's shoes for him.
Cool.
Check people out. Yeah.
So is this like your first real job, air quote?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
like first job, you have like a boss and you have to clock in.
right.
So
Yeah.
what's that like? What's it like having a boss? And...
I mean, I feel like it's not even though it's a different situation, it's not the way, I always respect my authority figure. So it's not like I'm not used to doing what I'm told. So it's not too much of a change on that. But it's more a change in like the responsibility. Like you have a boss, he's going to give you something to do and you're responsible to get it done. So that's probably the difference.
At college, at Lee, one thing that I've been confronting in my own life lately is realizing that I don't necessarily feel like I'm in touch with like the younger generation anymore. Like college kid, I always thought of myself as like high school kids, college kids, those are all my peers, right? Well, that's not really the case anymore.
Right.
And so I would love to, I think I brought this up on an episode with Callie that I was on. It's happening more. It's never happened before until like recent months that I'll be like in the comment section on Instagram or TikTok and I don't know what kids are talking about. I'm like, wow, I'm old now. But I want to ask you, a young person, you're what, 20?
I'm 19.
You're 19. Yeah. Okay. What do you feel like, you can say this for yourself or for like your peers, but like, what are like the struggles that kids your age are facing right now in college or late in high school? Like what's the big conflict in your guys' life?
I think what I've noticed the most personally from my age group, when you go to college, some people are going in with a group of friends, but a lot of people are not. And I think a big struggle is friendships and new friendships, but also past relationships because it's your responsibility, you and whoever it is, to, keep in touch. And that sometimes fades, sometimes you grow closer. But I think relationships is where a 19, 20-year-old can really get lost.
Yeah.
And because it's like you had 3 best friends and you all could have gone to different colleges. Now you have to find new ones. So I think that would probably be the biggest thing that I'd say people my age might struggle with.
Sure. I feel like maybe at a school like Lee too, that's even more common because it's not a big state school where all the kids from your high school went to.
Exactly.
It's a small private Christian school. I think there's like maybe 5,000 students there.
Yeah, probably around there.
And I know you, it's not like you went to Lee with a bunch of your friends.
Exactly.
So what is like what has what have you been doing? Have you been really just maintaining your old relationships from a distance, or creating new ones, or both? What does that look like for you?
I think a good balance of both. I think when it comes to the new relationships, it just takes effort. It's like if I want, if I'm feeling lonely or like I don't have friends, it's up to me to be proactive on my behalf. And the good thing about Lee is I feel like you can make a friend with anybody there if you tried.
Yeah.
I feel like the people there are very open to new relationships. So I think that's awesome about Lee. And then when it comes to past relationships, a lot of them fall off, but I don't think it's in like a negative way.
Yeah.
I think I've been shown the relationships that are important, those will stay because they agree, you agree, without, having that conversation. It's just like mutual interest in keeping the relationship alive, like just with your family even. If I choose to not reach out to my brothers, that's my fault. So I think it's just a good balance of keeping the ones you think you need and they need you, and then also branching out and meeting new people.
How has the adjustment been, being away from your family, from your brothers, your mom, your dad? What's that been like?
A lot different. I think it's kind of fun, and where I didn't expect it's kind of fun is we can spend time apart, but then when we come back, it's all like we might look different to each other, be interested in different things now. So it's kind of cool to grow from a distance, but also it's just tough sometimes. My brothers are my best friends, so I think it's a good balance of struggle, but also reward when you get to reunite.
Yeah, I think I may have talked with you about this the last time you were on the show, but I've really felt like my experience in college strengthened my relationship with Eli, my brother.
Sure.
And because Eli and I, we're 3 years apart, and we butt heads a lot growing up, and we fought a lot as brothers. But I felt like on the times when I would like come back for spring break or Christmas break or a random weekend, different. Yeah, it's like, all right, dude, I don't want to fight because I'm only here for 2 days or whatever. Exactly. So I don't know. I cherish my time with Eli a lot more. I'm sure you're experiencing that as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, so one more thing about Lee, and then we can talk about other stuff. But and I have no idea what your involvement or was with this, but I've heard as an alumni about the revival that was going on at a few colleges around the country, and Lee was one of them. Did you attend, or do you know? Give me the update on that.
Yeah, so I had formally, it was kind of, I feel like the first few days it was very small that I know of, and it was very, like, is this actually happening kind of thing? Because you know how we have chapel every Tuesday, Thursday? Sure. It started off being advertised as a prayer meeting, and I was working that whole week, so actually I didn't go to anything. But I do know it turned into like a week-long thing, and I'm not sure how much happened there, or not how much happened, but what exactly the revival consisted of. But the professors and students that I heard from that did go said that it was a life-changing experience. Wow. So it's good for the campus, but I also think, from my point of view, I think these revivals were more important just to the grand scheme of even the social media attention. I know that it was helpful to the communities that they were at, but also I think even more the communities that they weren't at that just heard about it.
What was the rumors or the buzz at school among the students about what was going on?
It was kind of just, at first, I think it was like, is this actually a revival? I don't think any of us have even been faced with a situation like, hey, there's a revival. Like, what does that even mean? That's what I think. That was more of like the confusion. It's like, what is revival? But I think most of it was a lot of people were wondering, are we going to get out of class? So it was seen as a different situation to a lot of the people, but it was more just, I'd say, a lot of curiosity.
Yeah.
And I think that's what drew a lot of people to actually go.
Yeah, I was curious. I feel like revival is a word. So I'm 26.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in the church and I heard that word all the time. Right. And I went to revivals and stuff like that. But I honestly, even still, I couldn't give you like a good definition of like what revival is. I think maybe it's just something it's like when you know, you know. But when I was hearing about, I think the first college was Asbury.
Asbury, something like that.
Yeah, I never heard of the school.
I think in Carolina, maybe.
Okay, but I heard about that, and I would see stuff online about it, and then I went to. I'm friends on Facebook with like people who are still pretty connected with Lee, and I started seeing them posting stuff about it, and I was like, "What is this?" And I feel like curiosity is probably the right word, and I feel like that's a good thing that people are curious. And me, someone who grew up in the church, I was asking questions and like wondering what's going on, and do I need to go to this or whatever. And but I think it's cool that you were on the on campus while that was going on.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll shift away from Lee for a little bit. I want to talk to you about a trip that you and your brothers and your dad went on in January. I got to FaceTime with you guys. I wanted to go on that trip, but for whatever reason, I couldn't. But your dad got married, and you went to his wedding. Yes. Were you a groomsman, like officially, or?
I think it was very unofficial.
Yeah.
Unofficial groomsmen.
Well, tell me, what was that experience like? You guys were out in Oceanside, California. How'd that go?
It was fun. I think it was important that it was more than just his wedding. That was obviously very important to him, which made it important to us. But it was also just a good 3 or 4 days. I got, a long weekend, and that was the first time in a while, I think since Christmas, that my brothers and I were all just in the same spot for 3 or 4 days straight, just together. So I think it was a great time for just refreshment and family, and then obviously a nice celebration.
Yeah, when you're with your dad and your brothers, like, what's the vibe like? Is it super like compassionate, like, oh, I miss you, or is it like joking?
It's very jokey.
Yeah,
it's a lot of like us trying to pick at each other just for the time that we have. 2 people will pick on one, and then the other 2 will hop on the one who started it. So I think when we're all together the most, it's just picking on each other and just joking around.
Maybe the psych guy can tell me this, but why is it that I feel like, especially with men, especially with men, I feel like our love language is like picking on each other and making fun of each other. What is that?
I personally, and I think with your brothers especially too, I think that's what we find funny. Yeah. But also I think that comes down to like this competitiveness between like men. So it's like, oh, you picked on me. Me and my boy are going to pick on you. So I think it's just like a back and forth dominance kind of thing between boys. I don't know. And I think we feed off of it with each other and find it funny. Yeah,
I often, I think about it after I'm with like my brother or my guy cousin specifically, like I'll think about the conversations that we had, and in my mind, I'm like, I would never say that to anybody.
To anyone else.
I would never say that. Like, not my girl cousins, not co-workers. The stuff I say to them is like, it's almost like it's not even me. It's like a different person.
Being with your brothers, I think, is something that it's like, there's not any other kind of, it's just a different vibe in the room. So.
But, I say all that, I know when I'm done saying things and joking and picking fun, like those are the people that I love the most in my life. And like outside of my wife, who I do not joke with like that, but like that's my family, that's my blood, and those are the people that I value. That's my inner circle,
Mm-hmm.
and those are the people that they give it to me the most too.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting.
It is interesting dynamic, but it's definitely true.
Maybe you can ask your psych professor what that is.
I'll have to do a study on that.
So let me ask you about. I see you posting sometimes about the Lee basketball team. Have you become like a fan of the team?
I'm a super fan.
So what's going on with Lee basketball?
So they just got in the tournament, the D2 tournament, but kind of just back to filling my heart with the void of not being an athlete. It's just supporting the athletes on my campus. I've built relationships with a few of those guys, especially in my grade. So it's also just comes down to wanting to support them. But just being a fan of sports, and there's not a ton to do on a Tuesday or Thursday night in Cleveland, so that's actually what I literally look forward to. Yeah. So that's fun.
Do you ever get the itch like, man, I think I could play with these guys?
I do. Actually, not like I could just step on right now. I know I would have to like put some work in. Yeah. But what then holds me back is like the lack of desire to actually do that. But yes, I do definitely get the itch. Like, do
you like, are there basketball players or athletes in your dorm?
No, there's not.
There's not? Okay.
Not in Medlin.
Oh, you're in Medlin. I forgot, bro. Yeah. That's a complete... So, there's 2 freshman boys dorms at Lee's campus. There's Medlin, and then another one called B.O.B. I lived in B.O.B. Mm-hmm. B.O.B. was built in like 2015, 16.
Medlin was built in 1918. So there's a difference.
Fun fact, Billy Graham stayed at Medlin. Stayed there, so that's how old that is. Completely different vibe. Yeah. But... I say all that, so in B.O.B., that's where they put the athletes at, because they want the athletes in the nice. Yeah. And so me and Jackson, we lived with a bunch of soccer players in our dorm room, and we ended up living for like a year or so in an on-campus apartment with 2 of the soccer players. Mm-hmm. And living with those guys, I realized that being a college athlete is hard. Mm-hmm. And like... I would say at many times it sucks. Mm-hmm. Like their lives are
most of the time.
Yeah, their lives are completely consumed by obviously school because they're student athletes, but then any other time it's workouts or treatment or practice or games, traveling. Like they have almost no free time at all. And so I'm curious if you've witnessed that, and I'm assuming that's a barrier to entry for you.
Yeah, I have witnessed it. First from my older brother, Zion. It's not like I witnessed that firsthand, but I was able to hear about, and especially football. Lee doesn't have a football team, and I would have played football if I played a sport. But so Zion, really, I learned from him that it's a grind. Yeah. And then just having friends on the basketball team and soccer team, you realize just with talking to them how much that they always have.
Yeah. I have a lot of respect for the college athletes in my life. I think about Zion. I think about Jervon. Jervon played basketball at Lee. I'm sure I'm forgetting some people, but yeah, college athletes, they go hard.
Yes.
All right, bro. Let me ask you a question. I don't think I've asked this to anyone lately, and... I don't remember if I asked this to you on your first time on the shows. So if I did, just forget about that. But I want to ask you about, at 19 years old, your whole life is ahead of you. The world is your oyster. Like there's so many doors and opportunities open to you, and you can make your life whatever you want to right now. I want to ask you, at the phase of life that you're in right now, what are you dreaming about?
It's a great question. I think right now a lot of what I'm dreaming about just has to do with my current life, which is different because in high school you're dreaming about, you think when you go to college you're just stepping into like adulthood. But what I've realized at college is there's still a big gap of time where I have to learn about myself and figure out what I want my dreams to be. So I think it's half really dreaming about like graduating college and graduating with enough money to live on my own. But then there's also the side of what I'm working towards. So with a psychology degree, I'm thinking of being like a therapist or a counselor. Those are kind of the farther ahead dreams I have right now, but it's kind of just a mix of current and future dreams.
Is grad school part of that? Like if you wanted to become a therapist?
I think it kind of just depends on the level you want to go to.
Yeah.
We'll see when we get there.
Yeah.
That's kind of an example of praying about and dreaming about where I'm at now. So
I think about Jackson, our cousin Jackson, who he's going to be finishing his doctorate program that he's been in for the last 2 years now. But he started at Lee when he was 18, I think, 18 or 19, your age. And now he just turned 26 and he's just finishing.
Yeah.
And I think if you, hopefully I'll have him on the show soon. If you talk to him, he'll tell you he's thankful for his path and he feels confident in his decision, but he'd also say it was a long time of school. I'm wondering, do you think about, man, maybe I could be in school for the next 6, 7, 8 years.
I think about it, and I think that thought is what makes me not want to do that. But also I have to remind myself I'm only in my second semester. So, I may get to my 4th year and be like, I could do 4 more. Or I may just be wanting to call it quits there, So we'll see.
I love asking people about what they're dreaming about because it's something I spend a lot of time thinking about for myself. And I always like to encourage people to tell them whatever it is that you're dreaming of, you can always dream bigger. And why wouldn't you? You should dream bigger. And I know you, like you're a guy that I don't say this just to everyone, but I really do believe whatever you dream of, you could achieve if you wanted it.
Thank you, Josh.
And so there's my mushy comment for today.
Josh.
Let me ask you about, this is a specific, probably not specific to Lee, but specific to like Christian colleges. Have you heard the term ring by spring?
I have heard the term ring by spring.
Do you know what that is?
Not fully, but I think so.
Okay.
With the whole engagement thing, I believe,
right.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Do you know anyone at Lee that's gotten engaged yet?
It's this girl in my math class.
Yeah.
I don't know her. She came to class, and my professor, and this is where college is just so different. She was like, "How was y'all's weekend?" In high school, it's whatever, we went to the party, blah, blah, blah. And this girl in my algebra class was like, showed me her ring. She got engaged, all this. So that was an eye-opener. So yes.
I think so.
Multiple people.
So ring by spring is like a term that like you start the year out in the fall, and the goal is you're going to get engaged by spring. Yeah. And I don't know if it's still like this, but when I was at Lee, like there was a huge cultural emphasis on marriage and like the clock tower. Have you heard this clock tower story or whatever?
No, I've heard the clock.
Okay,
but I've always wondered like.
So there's this like, it's funny now that saying it out loud, but there's like this Lee legend that if you're standing under the clock tower when the bell goes off with like your significant other or someone of the opposite gender, that means you're going to get married to them. Yeah. And so I remember like couples would literally like hang out around the clock tower.
That's
and
hilarious.
I don't know. It's just, but I knew, so when me and Jackson lived in BOB our first year, a guy who lived on our floor, he got engaged like at the end of our first semester.
Wow.
Like, so he was probably 19 maybe.
Yeah.
And now that guy, I won't say his name. He's a cool guy, but he's like married with 2 kids and he's my age.
Let's go.
And I knew several people at Lee who got engaged during their time there. And I don't know. I guess when you know, you know.
Yeah.
And Everyone's timing is different. Do you think about marriage at all at this phase of your life?
No, and I do. Last time I was on, me and my girlfriend were in that talking stage. We've been dating now for almost a year.
Nice.
She goes to Auburn, I go to Lee. And for all you long distance people out there, I think it can be seen as a kind of like a bad thing. It's like, oh, that never works out, which I heard a bunch of times, but I think there's a lot of positives to doing long distance if you're put in that situation. So it's all you doing it out there. It's not impossible. You have to put in work and effort and commitment. But no, I don't. I think it's important to have that mutual understanding of, at this point in your life, you're dating to marry. It's not like, especially doing long distance, that's too much work to put in to just be messing around. But also, I don't think marriage is a necessary conversation at this point.
Sure.
I mean, I'm not getting married when I'm in college. So with that being said, that's at least 4 years that I have to go with my girlfriend before that point. I think it's a good thought to have and a good thing to be working towards when it comes to yourself and preparing yourself for, but I don't think it's necessary to be in that whole marriage conversation when you're 19.
Sure.
So
yeah, I will say this. I am the product of a long distance relationship. My parents were long distance for I've heard it was 3 or 4 years. Like their relationship was basically over the phone for a long time. So, and Jackson and Leah, long distance. I know plenty of long distance relationships that worked out.
There's hope out there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of haters.
Yeah,
so
I believe in long distance relationships. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for them. You did say one thing that I think is interesting about dating to marry, and that you don't feel like you're in the phase of your life where, you're dating to marry. I would guess that that's not everybody at your age. I feel like, I don't know what the percentages are, but I knew plenty of people when I was 19. I know people my age now who aren't dating to marry. But I want to ask you, where does that come from for you? Why do you feel that way about dating?
I think I've always been kind of protective of myself. You could say I had, from the time I was in 6th grade to when I graduated, I had one girlfriend, and it was in the 6th grade. So I've always just kind of been used to not letting, girls be a big distraction when it comes to just dating and breaking up and dating someone else. But with dating to marry, I think at this point, once again, especially with long distance, it's like that's too much of yourself to be, giving to someone else and taking on another person if you're not doing it for the end goal. So I think it's just kind of to me, it's just common sense. It's why am I driving 3.5 hours to see you if I don't want to stay with you for the years to come? So I think it's kind of just all I know.
Yeah.
That's pretty much it.
No, that's great. I think I wanted to have you talk about that because, I hear a lot of people from older generations talk about the younger generation. And I know the statistics say that millennials and Gen Z were getting married later in life than the generations before us. Were having kids later, having less kids. All of those things are generalizations about our generation. But I think it's important that people remember that our generation, we're not a monolith. There's diversity of thought within our generation. And I think there are a lot of young people like you that are thinking that way of dating to marry or considering, the importance of marriage and things like that. And I don't know. Sometimes I get tired by hearing people talk about our generation. And I'm sure every generation goes through it. But we're more than just the statistics,
Yes,
and
we
I'm
are.
glad to have a young voice to share that. But
Yes.
well, bro, I guess we'll finish up. I want to thank you for being here, and I do this sometimes on different episodes, and I wasn't planning on doing it today, but I kind of just want to finish on this. But the first time I had Uncle Yeti on the show, this was over a year ago. He shared a story about a time where he got to meet someone he really looked up to in his life. He was a young person at the time, and he remembers the conversation that he had with this person, and they gave him a word of advice, and the advice was this: whenever you meet somebody, always leave them with an encouraging word. And so certain times, certain episodes, I've asked my guests if they feel led to, if you would like to share any kind of word of encouragement to me and to our listeners. I'd love to hear that from you, Riff.
I love that. I feel like after this first year of this new chapter of my life, I feel like I've come out with plenty of things that I can encourage people with, just because I've had to remind myself and do it for myself. But I think something I would leave people with today could be a little cheesy or generic, but it's just, I wouldn't be here if I wouldn't be where I am today if I didn't do this, and that's just follow your heart. Graduating high school, I was basically the only one who really thought I made the right decision by not playing football. At least that's how I felt. And I have loved my first semester of college. I feel like a different person, a new young man. And if I went and did what everyone expected me to do and play football, I already know I would not be happy because I know that I didn't want to do it. I wouldn't have the relationships I do right now, whether that be the new ones I've made or past ones. But listen to your heart. You're the only one who knows what's inside of you. People can't read your mind. People can know you and try to pick up what they see on the outside, but nobody can see inside of you. So just listen to your heart.
Thank you so much, Riv. That's great, and I need to hear that today.
Thank
So
you.
it's always an honor and a pleasure having you
Thanks
here.
for having me.
Whenever I know, when do you head back to school?
Saturday.
Yep. Safe travels to
Thank
you.
Thank
and
you.
I guess I'll probably see you in the summer, maybe. Yeah.
About a month.
Cool, bro.
Yep.
Well, finish
Thanks for having
strong.
me.
Of course.
Will do.
Finish strong, and always know I'm proud of you, bro.
Thank you. Proud of you too.
To those of you listening, we'll be back with more episodes soon. Have a great day.